I, Raila Amolo Odinga, having been faithful and committed to building a national, democratic and progressive Kenya in our lifetime, having worked for many patriotic Kenyans to achieve this goal, I do hereby accept to present myself as a presidential candidate at the presidential elections on the 9th of August 2022, following the request and anonymous group by Jamhuri Umoja.
All right, so the ODM leader Raila Odinga there essentially declaring his candidature for president in next year's election, but, you know, framed in an interesting way, Linus, that he's merely accepting the requests by all kinds of people for him to run for president. But all the same, not surprising at all. I mean, we expected all of this, but it's a fairly different run for the president for Raila Odinga.
A very different run, and the fifth this time. He's been in the race since 1997.
And seeking to be the fifth president.
And seeking to be the fifth president on his fifth attempt.
Yeah.
Kasarani was a culmination of a build-up process that started in, actually, we wrongly said Nakuru. The actual start should have been Kisii.
Kisii, yeah.
Yeah, there's Kisii, and then it went to Kakamega. And then there was a whole break because of COVID-19. And then it resumed and started in Nakuru again before it proceeded to other regions. Azimio la Umoja was put together as a build-up process. And in typical political fashion, what Raila Odinga and his team was saying is, we have gone around the country and listened to the people. Never mind that half the time they're actually the ones talking to the people.
Yes.
And they're saying, look, we accept what the people have said. So in terms of a build-up, they really scored high marks in terms of just how to build up a national race. Go to the regions, make a big deal, meet the leaders of those regions in some place, and then proceed to rallies. The build-up by Azimio to this Kasarani event was actually very smart politics, very good in terms of mobilization. And the peak showed itself in the manner of the attendance. Who are the people then sitting in the dais there? And what were they saying? And look at how the event also played out. Clips from these regions were played at the stadium, where you saw leaders, governors,
yeah, it was
locals.
Made for television, the whole thing.
Yes, it was actually very, very well constructed for television. And then we listened to these views from the region. So the build-up must be put there as quite something smart. Something else that was different, Raila Odinga and the auto queue.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. He tried the auto queue for the first time, I think, or second time. The first time was
Kasarani Gymnasium.
Kasarani Gymnasium in 2007 when he had the ODM Pentagon.
Yeah.
And so the auto queue is back again, the television era kind of election. And he struggled through it. The setup cannot be described as perfect. You could see he's
too much on the left.
It's too much. Yeah.
He basically didn't use the teleprompter on the right.
Yeah. Or if there was one at the center, was there?
No, there were two.
There was one right to the left.
Right.
Yeah, and then whatever happened with the right one, but he just kind of abandoned it.
Yeah, and he seemed to have challenges. You know.
Well, as a social democrat, Raila would sit on the center left, and I think he remained true to that by using the auto cue on the left. But overall, this was a very well choreographed event, and there's something it says about our politics. You have to. It's a show game. Like, show us who you are with. And when you saw the likes of C.S. Munya speaking, the likes of Murade coming there to speak and saying very interesting things, you can tell that, this is a campaign that is also shaping up as a big national show.
And can we talk about also what happened just before, and maybe we'll get into what Murade said, but of course the absence of the One Kenya Alliance principles was also
was quite conspicuous.
It was quite conspicuous considering Raila Odinga had actually attended.
Except Gideon.
Except Gideon, yes, that's correct. And actually Gideon Moi was with him at his house, all the way. I mean, that was, definitely, a much bigger sign about perhaps what the relationship could be between KANU and the Azimio La Umoja movement. But, the other One Kenya Alliance principles were not there. And then there was that interesting tweet from Musalia Mudavadi as to why he wasn't there, and all of the others. Interesting, Francis, because they had been, Raila had been present at all of the other, NDCs endorsing them. And he was invited the same way, Raila invited them to this event.
I would put it this way. If they really wanted to be there, they would have been there. For whatever reason, they would have been there. The trip to South Sudan didn't look to me like an emergency. Maybe Musalia had an arguable case because he was and still is bereaved.
Yep.
But Wetangula was within the country, and so they had if they wanted to be there, they would have been there. But I looked at it slightly differently. Their no-show was probably to communicate a message that not yet, not so soon, not so soon in the context of if they were to attend this show, they would have been overwhelmed by the kind of a scenario that you saw. And most of them would have looked like they have come to endorse, to rubber stamp the candidature of Raila Odinga. Yeah? And so I thought it was clever political optics on their part to play a little tough and maybe attend such things if there is a formal engagement, if you may like. But now the question that would be posed in reverse is what would they have changed with their presence at Kasarani that wasn't there? And of course, even the question about their political weight, if you may like it. Today they were, for the first time, meeting at a venue after the Azimio La Umoja conference, though a sad one. We saw Musalia, we saw Wetangula, we saw Kalonzo at the Requiem Mass of Mudavadi's stepmom. And they had some interesting things to say about their bid. In fact, some of their supporters talking about a possible third force and trying to debunk the narrative that so far this is a two-horse race. And I think it would be nice to listen to what Kalonzo, Wetangula and their MPs were saying.
Na mimi nataka niwaambie hiyo chama imeundwa kupigana na Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi, ama namna gani? Sisi tunakaribisha Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi kwa chama yetu ya UDA. Unajua Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi amekuwa sasa naibu wa rais, vice president na nini.
And we encourage you not to engage in unhelpful sectarian behavior of thinking that if the person you support is not the candidate, then there is no candidate. We in Oka have agreed that we are together to the end, and any one of us will carry the weight, the mantle, the interests, and the vision.
As One Kenya Alliance, we are together. Please pray for us. Please pray that the next team, the best team, the team that will hold this nation together will be in place to govern this country next year.
But they must know that Mudavadi has a right to take a stand. And if he has decided that he does not want to support either Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga or Honorable William Ruto, they must give Musalia Mudavadi his respect and leave him alone to pursue his agenda as he deems fit to serve the people of this country called Kenya.
We have to make sure this narrative of two horse is not there. We are Oka, we are a third force.
Or third force. There is a series of meetings lined up probably for the weekend, including one with the Mount Kenya Unity Forum. You remember that team of Martha Karua?
MKs.
The MKs, yeah? There's a
MK.
possibility of a meeting, I think, this coming weekend. And this third force story reappears. Now, the question that will be raised as we move on is, how strong will the third force be? How strong will the third horse be, bearing in mind that the two horses, that is Raila Odinga and William Ruto, the deputy president, are seen to have already bolted and are out there in the campaign trail. And so the no-show by the One Kenya Alliance, I would say, was politically significant. Now, moving forward is to what they will do with their no-show at Kasarani and what they can offer in the alternative, and to say, we were not there because we are pursuing this different political agenda, and this is how we are pursuing it.
And that is interesting, and I think that idea of the two-horse race is really at the heart of why they did not go to that meeting, because look, the way that the race has been framed so far as we look at it is that you're either on this side or on the other. And if they were to have gone there, it would have been a big deal for them, because most people would have seen, remember, they've been under pressure, or so we hear, to support Raila Odinga. And so them going there would have been, in the eyes of a lot of people, sort of the latest sign that maybe they have acquiesced to those demands or requests, whatever they might be. But going forward, I think it's an interesting space for the OCA principles, because one, all those things that they are saying, they have to follow through, and probably if they are not able to come up with a candidate either this month by Christmas or at the very latest in January, it will be late, if it is not already, because there's a way that Kenyans tune their minds when an election comes. They will hang in somewhere there, and then at a certain point, it's almost as if it is locked. So once they lock their minds on either Raila Odinga or William Ruto, that is really it. It's going to be very difficult to break through whatever it is that they're going to say. And that is something that I am sure they're bearing in mind. But we have had people swear like that before in this country, like, oh yeah, we are going to go to kutane kwa debe. That's what they usually say, and that debe usually ends up being just talk. I still think I'd rather take a guess here and stick my neck out that they will not all go into the same box. I think that by January, February, latest next year, it will be difficult to talk about OCA in these same terms that we are talking tonight.
Like a long race, there will be many that will start, but very few will go to the, to the end. And some certain factors will naturally introduce the elimination method, if you may like. For example, if you don't have enough resources to campaign and conduct a presidential campaign in this country, naturally you will have to exit the stage, if you may like it. If you don't have enough numbers, voters to say, you will automatically have to exit. And if you don't have proper networks across the country and internationally, then vagaries of nature will force you to exit the stage, so to say. But be it as it may, we've seen presidential elections previously conducted where you will have, let's say, 6, 7 candidates, but at the very top are 2 candidates at most. The rest will be in the race, but in newsrooms we call them fillers. They will be there, but they will not be part of the main news. There will be others, if you may like it. And so I don't know whether the One Kenya Alliance will have sufficient numbers, resources, networks to make them a serious contender, or if they were to go all the way to the ballot, they would be part of the others.
Interesting. I think we need to go to, yes, Linus.
Yeah, can I say something about
Sure.
Yeah. I think the One
It's
Kenya...
okay to talk about...
It's okay to talk about... The One Kenya Alliance, in my view, is suffering from 2 problems. The first one is that of a false start. It works in politics, it works exactly the same way it works in athletics. So when you have a false start, usually there is a warning, the gun is then fired, and then you are given a warning because of a false start. In higher competitions, you're actually disqualified completely. That is the first problem of OCA. Remember, OKA, the first time we spoke about them on the news gang was when they had an event in Machakos. You remember that? Mm-hmm. And I remember the famous tag we had, the Machakos brothers, because that's where they were. Moses Wetangula, Gideon Moi, Kalonzo Musyoka, and Musalia Mudavadi. And then from there, they had another event in Western Kenya. Why I call it the false start is because they were not very clear from the very beginning that here we are, One Kenya Alliance, and this is our plan, we are moving. Because the next thing they did after that was we started seeing them in meetings with President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga in State House. Those appearances are part of what constitutes what I'm calling a false start. Let me go to the second problem that OCA suffers. The second problem that OCA suffers from is it's positioning itself as a threat and not as a political alternative. You hear its proponents like Senator Malala saying, if that is the candidate, then Musalia Mudavadi will be a candidate. We'll reject him and Musalia Mudavadi will go his way. You don't position yourself as a threat. You must present yourself as a political alternative and say, we are going to challenge Raila Odinga because we think A, B, C, and D. Musalia Mudavadi is better than him because of this and that. Or Kalonzo Musyoka, if that is the candidate you are fielding as One Kenya Alliance. One Kenya Alliance has not been clear in messaging. Nobody knows what One Kenya Alliance stands for. Because they seem to say, we will only present ourselves to you if our talks with Raila Odinga Uhuru Kenyatta axis fails, or if we don't find William Ruto attractive to go with us. So you end up actually in the psyche of Kenyans playing really a very insignificant role. Here is one last thing. Was that woman rep
Vihiga.
Adagala saying we are a third force. Very interesting of a party that wants to run the country to introduce itself as number 3 officially.
Yeah.
We are number 3. It's a very interesting thing. You start a race and all you are interested in is bronze.
That's like Arsenal.
But also
for number 4.
But you know, if you are any force at all, third, second, first, or whatever,
you won't have to introduce yourself.
Yeah.
You'll be a force, and someone else will tell you you are actually a force. So there is a huge problem at One Kenya Alliance. Oh, maybe there's a third problem that then will arise: a question of timing. Question of timing, because, and like you pointed out earlier, Joe, this thing has already shaped itself as a William Ruto versus Raila Odinga race. It's up there already that way. It's sitting there. So much so that all other players, you either join William Ruto or join Raila Odinga, or sit and expect a miracle, which in politics is, just like in mathematics, doesn't quite happen. So it has shaped itself this early that way. And then there have not been a lot of variables, except, of course, what we are going to talk about in the next subject, which I think is a great variable.
Yeah, one more for start, the mixed signals. On one hand, we are together, like you saw today. But on the other hand, 2 of the 5 One Kenya Alliance principle, if you include Jirongo there, 2 of them are attending the Azimio la Umoja, 3 are keeping away. And so, are they together? So if they are, why the mixed kind of messaging? And I don't know whether we have some time to listen to what Atwoli was telling Gideon Moi and what Gideon Moi's response to what Atwoli was telling him was.
Mzee akiondoka nchi hii alisema tusikuache, na nataka kukuhakikishia hatutakuacha kwa OCA. Sisi hatutakuacha kwa OCA, hatutawacha Gideon Moi kwa OCA, hatutawacha wewe kwa OCA. Ungana na baba. Baba's gain in gaining ground is our gain. When we gain ground on our side, it is Baba's gain. The forces are one. We are allied. Tunajua the moving target. Na hiyo target is na move, lakini itapata nafasi ambayo itaanza kututulia. And then, Baba, mwaga risasi zako hapo, sisi tunamwaga zetu hapo, basi tunaona mbele itakuwaje.
Na sisi tu ni kumuombea, kwa sababu yeye akipata, sisi tumepata. Na sisi tukipata, mzee amepata.
Yeah, you see now, guys, that mixed kind of messaging is also what is attracting other presidential contenders. Put it this way, the two horses, to look at the One Kenya Alliance team as a possible hunting ground. And that explains why the deputy president was in Kakamega and Vihiga yesterday and today. And expressly asking the people, you know, like piling pressure.
Yeah.
Unataka Musalia na Wetangula wafanye kazi na mimi ama wafanye kazi na nani? Take a listen.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ruto wooing Musalia and Wetangula. Oh yeah, Roba is playing it shortly. I was trying to explain in Kakamega and in Vihiga yesterday and today, the deputy president was all out, you know, trying to convince the two leaders to join his team. And that probably would explain why the KANU leader and Atwoli were also trying to hunt in the same One Kenya Alliance.
Afanye na kitendawili ama afanye na mimi? Afanye na kitendawili ama afanye na hasla? Afanye na hasla. Hebu nione wale wanasema afanye na hasla, afanye na hasla, afanye na hasla. Mimi nauliza nyinyi, Wetangula hapa chini, mnataka Wetangula afanye na kitendawili ama afanye na hasla? Afanye na hasla. Hebu nione wale wanasema afanye na hasla.
That works both ways. If they find it necessary to work with the deputy president, they will say the people said. That was public participation, if you may like it.
Interesting, and I think that they would have to create a distance between themselves and both of the campaigns if they are to be taken as a possible third force. But there wasn't that much distance between the president and the ODM leader, Raila Odinga, at this year's Jamhuri Day celebrations, the last one, we should say, for President Uhuru Kenyatta. And I think it would be important to listen to what, shall we listen to the president first? I think...
on BBI Dream Deferred?
Yeah.
And although it encountered some legal obstacles, I say again today that BBI is just a dream deferred. One day, someday, it will happen. Because just as the country cannot survive ethnic majoritarianism and exclusion, just in the same breath, it cannot survive unfair and skewed representation. This is a design defect, and we must fix it.
Okay, so President Uhuru Kenyatta there talking about BBI, obviously something that they pushed very hard with Raila Odinga. But it was quite interesting looking at the issue of protocol, how it played out there. Linus, and I'll start with you, because we saw the president introduced by the deputy president, as is normal, and then the president speaks and goes into this praise, a string of praises for Raila Odinga, and then somewhere he stops and says, naona ni kama watu wanataka uongee na kuja wasalimie kidogo, and then almost right on cue the former prime minister comes and gives his 5 minutes or something like that of a speech, which in many people's minds didn't look like it was something that he wasn't expecting.
I think it was quite a moment, and I think we are going to look for that particular soundbite of the president introducing Raila Odinga very close to the end of his speech. He had actually made his formal English speech.
The written speech.
And then now he was making the Swahili one and said, come in and we have the bite now. And then basically saying, come and speak to these people. Now, if you look around, nobody really demanded that the former prime minister addresses the crowd. It's just, if correctly put, is just the closest, and yet another moment again when President Uhuru Kenyatta has indicated his political preference when it comes to the 2022 election. And it has been an interesting trail, considering that only a few weeks ago, speaking in Nakuru, again, he spoke in a way that basically drove attention to the...
Mzee anakanyaga pole.
Sprint in a marathon.
Yes, sprint in a marathon. You can now tell where the president is leaning. Now, for observers of our politics, we should look at the long journey that has preceded all this. When it started with the handshake, some said, President Uhuru Kenyatta is just basically removing a big problem in the way, putting Raila Odinga on the other bench, rest him politically, and then allow Ruto to, Deputy President William Ruto, to then have an easy race in 2022. It seemingly is not the case. Mm-hmm. And if it's the case, then this is very, very interesting, because we can tell that the distance between the president and the deputy president is growing politically, while the distance between the president and the former prime minister is growing closer and closer by the day. Because you look at the content of his speech in Uhuru Gardens, he'd say, I've been speaking to him for the last 14
months.
And he's the one who advised me on some of the things that happened here.
Yes. So he is also suggesting and putting it in the table that this is someone I speak to. This is someone close to me. Now, look at all this in context, because only a few days before, that is exactly 2 days, Raila Odinga had launched his presidential bid and Azimio in Kasarani. And before that, another 2 days before Azimio, there was the Mount Kenya Foundation endorsement of Raila Odinga, which again, Francis, I wanted to point out when it comes to the absence of OKA leaders from Kasarani. I think, in my view, Kasarani became untenable after the Mount Kenya Foundation endorsement.
Fair enough.
Because let us remember that Mount Kenya Foundation said they are conducting interviews at not far from Kasarani, actually just across the road, at the Safari Park Hotel. They had met OKA principals and also met Raila Odinga. So when they put their word and said, this is the person we are going to, it actually became untenable for OKA leaders to turn up in Kasarani. But I want to look at that in context and see that, Mount Kenya Foundation, a lot of them are close associates of President Uhuru Kenyatta. So in a way, there has been a massive political operation between Wednesday and Sunday, all in favor of Raila Odinga as the possible successor of President Kenyatta.
Yeah. Someone said that only successful candidates will be contacted.
Shortlist will be contacted.
But Yvonne,
right.
Yeah, that's what the deputy president actually was saying today when he was in Western. He was saying, "Tunaona sasa mtu wenu hata alienda interview hata hajaambiwa results." Now, Yvonne, let's get back to Jamhuri Day.
Yeah.
And there's been quite some discussion in the country about all of these things. And even Raila Odinga, when he stood to speak, talked about land grabbing and talked about Weston, which has been associated with the deputy president, and basically including Weston in that whole land grabbing story. That didn't look coincidental.
No, it didn't. And there was a lot of checkmating that was happening, in there. And we'll get to what the deputy president had to say, because he also had his moment and, made sure he slipped in one of his slogans. But one of the things, that happened here is this is not the first time we're seeing President Uhuru Kenyatta, quote unquote, breaking protocol. He did the same thing on the 1st of June, 2021 at the Madaraka Day celebrations, which happened in Kisumu. And if you recall, he said, "You will forgive me, but let me break protocol today, invite my brother," typically the same lines, my brother Jacom, to say hi to you and deliver his Madaraka Day sentiments. The same thing that, hawa watu wanasema uje wasalimie. But it was how he introduced him, and you could tell this was, the thing that you say in football, it was a pass to score. And it seemed very deliberate what Raila had to say and the very specific message he had to deliver, that perhaps President Uhuru Kenyatta, in his role as head of state and at a national function, had probably wanted to pass a message across to his deputy. But then, who does he use? Raila Odinga. So let's listen to that. Raila Odinga, on Uhuru Gardens. And all of this just seemed like a very well choreographed. Let's hear what Raila had to say.
Next to the Western Hotel, which is part of this ground, in Langata Primary School, there are torture chambers which have been preserved by the Museum of Kenya for people to know where we are coming from. Your Excellency, what you've done here is great. And this land had been grabbed. But those land grabbers would not see any open space and stop grabbing them. But we managed to retrieve it back for the benefit of our people. And it's going to remain truly Uhuru Gardens, where we also are going to bury our heroes and remember them for posterity.
Now, that didn't seem like a coincidence, all of it very planned. And you see, unfortunately for the deputy president, he could not have a last word on this issue. Also, to talk about what the president said, he did refer to the issue of history, which is something that came up with Raila Odinga during his Azimio. There was a very heavy emphasis on history and on Raila Odinga's, the role that he has played in the country's liberation and the sort of personal price he has had to pay. And we saw, Deputy President's wing saying, but, history isn't as important. We even saw the governor of Nyeri, saying, hatutaki mambo ya historia. And the president then addressing that, he says very directly, I know some of you have said that history is not important, but I believe it is, and this is why. And then he has, Raila Odinga deliver that blow to, Deputy President William Ruto, who would not have a chance, for a comeback. And just before we go to you, Linus, this is what also the Deputy President had to say, but sadly he didn't have the chance to come after, but he said it before. Let's listen to Deputy President on the same, throwing in his slogan.
Institutions that we build will guarantee equal opportunity for all our citizens, and that patronage and who you know will not determine how you succeed in our country. Tuungane pamoja kazini. Kila siku tuwe na shukrani, tukijua kazi ni kazi.
Lots of shadow boxing there. Everybody sort of, addressing each other, but not directly, not saying it with their chest into each other's faces. Linus?
He was speaking to a lot of people who are not necessarily in the stadium, because that's something he's been throwing out there in his rallies and everything. And as they say, if you know, you know.
That's right,
Linus? In politics, I just wanted to, now that there was a bit of mention of history, there is a place in our history for this thing called political greetings. Just the significance of having somebody to greet others. And whether it's a fundraiser in church or a funeral, they'll always say, kuja usalimie watu, come and greet people. Those greetings are not the usual greetings. They are politically calculated for political benefit. And when they come from senior ranks, as high as the president, they are actually very, very consequential. And I'm reminded of the late 70s, early 80s, when Jaramogi Oginga Odinga was not allowed to run for any political seat. He was in political Siberia down in Bondo. Kanu had expelled him and he could not run for anything. But from his farm, he basically decided who will be elected in Nyanza. And how he did it was through talk of greetings. He would say, if you see so and so, greet him, msalimie. And that converted the whole thing into support. Electoral victory, support. So these greetings, when you see President Kenyatta inserting former Prime Minister Raila Odinga in his speech, it is as consequential as some of those greetings that are shared out there with political purposes.
In fact, remember even when he was heading to Kirinyaga for the last Mashujaa Day celebrations, and he basically did what Linus is talking about. He was saying, I hope, he was speaking in Kikuyu actually, but the translation I got from Gashuri, which I trust, is that he was basically saying, I hope muliona mgeni wangu, yule alipitia hapa. And that was quite interesting. And I think those subtle hints that he's been dropping are getting more and more, they're getting bolder and bolder by the day, that I think one can even imagine that sometime next year he could actually hit the campaign trail, who knows.
I look at it this way. Having been at Uhuru Gardens on Sunday...
And you need to take a break before we finish.
Absolutely. Having been at Uhuru Gardens on Sunday, you could see signs of that protocol. Do I call it breach? I don't think it was breach. It was more of a choreography.
Bent.
You could see where it was heading to. First, it was quite an elaborate ceremony because of the consecration, presentation, and trooping of colors by 19KR. Even the governor of Nairobi was skipped. She didn't speak, yet she was part of the program. The MC, Peter Wanjohi, directly went to the deputy president, who then went to the president. And you could tell that at one point, Raila Odinga will get an opportunity to speak. And I would think it was part of a well-calculated plan to give him an opportunity to speak and to say those things that he said. But be it as it may, I'm looking at these functions, especially when the president is there, more about what he does not say as opposed to what he says. While he may not probably get to a point where he will, formally endorse the former prime minister as his candidate, but by design, you will see hints. So it will be more of interpretative journalism, more about what he's not saying as opposed to what he's saying. And the next question then, of course, is what are the benefits of what he's saying about the former prime minister? Does it help his cause or doesn't it help his cause? Because once in a while you'll hear critics of the former prime minister even go to the extent of calling him a project. And during that interview he had with Combat radio stations, he laughed off that project tag. And so we will continue to see a lot of those hints every so often whenever the president is present and the deputy president, even sometime present, but more fundamentally where the ODM leader is together with the president, more about what he does not say as opposed to what he says. And so, sika break kadogo kanaweza igiana hapo. Yeah.